A simple woman was denied a room in her billionaire husband's luxury hotel. The staff humiliated her in front of everyone. But when he arrived and saw what they had done, his reaction left the entire hotel staff in shock. The revolving doors of the Mitchell Grand Hotel spun as Beth Mitchell stepped into the luxurious lobby, her presence immediately stark against the opulence surrounding her. At 32, there was a quiet strength in her gaze. Yet the weight of a full day teaching at her community art program had left her tired. Her shoulders slumped from exhaustion. Her paint-streaked gray t-shirt, worn denim jacket, and faded jeans spoke of a woman who valued substance over appearance. A gray and white trucker cap sat low on her brown ponytail, forming a striking contrast with the polished elegance of the hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over marble floors, while guests dressed in their finest mingled by a grand piano, their hushed conversations punctuated by the gentle notes of a classical melody. Beth adjusted her backpack, suddenly acutely aware of the dried paint beneath her fingernails, and made her way to the reception desk where two impeccably dressed employees stood at attention. The brief phone call with her husband, Robert, just 30 minutes ago, had been quick and to the point. After a long day working with underprivileged children, the thought of driving another 2 hours to their countryside home had been too much to bear. When Robert had suggested she stay at his hotel, it had seemed like the perfect solution. "I'll let them know you're coming," he'd assured her before hanging up, his voice warm with the affection that had sustained their unlikely 5-year marriage. Few would pair the billionaire hotel magnate with the humble art teacher, but their connection had been immediate when Robert had donated to her struggling program years ago. From the start, they'd agreed on one thing. She would maintain her independent life and he would never expect her to become a trophy wife. Her work with children meant too much to give up for a life of luxury. "Good evening," Beth said with a tired but polite smile to the male receptionist, whose name tag read Bradley.
"I'm Beth Mitchell.
My husband should have arranged a room for me." Bradley's eyes slowly took in her appearance. The trucker hat, casual clothes, backpack, and his professional smile barely twitched. "Do you have identification, madam?" His voice held a note of skepticism that Beth didn't miss. Of course, she dug into her backpack, finding her wallet and pulling out her driver's license. Elizabeth Mitchell. Bradley examined the ID with exaggerated care, then exchanged a brief glance with his female colleague, Emma, who raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "And you say Mr. Mitchell arranged a room for you?" The doubt in Bradley's tone was unmistakable. "Yes, just a few minutes ago. Robert Mitchell. He owns this hotel." Beth kept her voice steady, though she could feel her patience thinning after a long day. The two receptionists exchanged another glance, this one more obvious than the first. Emma leaned in, her voice lowered but still loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star luxury hotel. Perhaps there's been some confusion." Beth felt heat rise to her cheeks. "There's no confusion. I'm Elizabeth Mitchell. Robert Mitchell is my husband. He owns this hotel chain." The lobby had grown quieter, with several guests now eyeing the exchange. "Of course you are." Bradley's tone dripped with condescension. "And I'm the Queen of England." Emma stepped forward, her polished demeanor now barely hiding her disdain. "Look, we get this sometimes. People think claiming a connection to the Mitchell family will get them special treatment." "I'm not claiming anything," Beth said firmly, though her voice remained controlled. "I am Elizabeth Mitchell. My husband is Robert Mitchell. He owns this hotel chain." A well-dressed couple nearby had stopped to watch, the woman whispering something to her husband. Bradley seemed to notice and grew more confident, his tone shifting to one of superiority. "Mrs. Mitchell," he emphasized the name, almost mocking, "is a former model, a charity board member, and attended the Met Gala last month." His eyes flicked dismissively over Beth's paint-stained jeans and casual t-shirt. "Perhaps you'd like to try another hotel better suited to your circumstances?" Beth's pulse quickened, but it wasn't for herself. It was for the principle behind his words. The assumption that worth was tied to appearance, that a woman married to wealth had to adhere to a certain image. "My husband called ahead," she said, her voice tight but controlled. "Please check your system." Bradley sighed dramatically, making a show of typing on his computer. "No reservation under Elizabeth or Beth Mitchell. No note from Mr. Mitchell either," he said, looking up with feigned sympathy. "How surprising. Could you call him, please?" Beth asked, maintaining her composure despite the growing crowd of onlookers. "Call Mr. Mitchell directly." Emma snorted. "Mr. Mitchell is one of the wealthiest businessmen in America. We don't just call him because someone in a trucker hat claims to be his wife." Beth took a steadying breath. "Then call the manager on duty." "That won't be necessary," Bradley replied with a cold smile. "Look, we're very busy with actual guests." He gestured to the growing line behind her. "The cozy in 6 blocks down might have availability." A distinguished older man in line spoke up. "Is there a problem here?" Emma turned to him, her expression transforming into one of warmth and respect. "No problem at all, sir. Just directing this person to more suitable accommodations." "I'm not leaving," Beth said, her voice quiet but resolute. "My husband is Robert Mitchell. This is his hotel. I want to speak to the manager now." Bradley's smile vanished, and his posture stiffened. "Security will escort you out if necessary." As if on cue, a security guard approached. "Everything all right here?" he asked, looking from Bradley to Beth. "This woman is refusing to leave," Bradley said, his voice now filled with disdain. "She's claiming to be Mrs. Mitchell and causing a disturbance." The security guard, a middle-aged man named Frank according to his badge, turned to Beth. "Ma'am, I'll have to ask you to come with me." Several guests were openly watching now, some even holding up their phones. Beth felt the weight of the eyes on her, the embarrassment beginning to surge, but she stood her ground. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every person who'd ever been judged for their appearance rather than their character. "I'm not causing a disturbance," she said clearly. "I'm trying to check into my husband's hotel after a long day of work." Frank hesitated, his discomfort evident, but he still maintained his professional stance. "Please don't make this difficult, ma'am. I want to speak to your general manager." Beth's voice was calm but unyielding. Bradley's lips curled into a smirk. "Richard is at a conference in New York. I'm the most senior staff member on duty. Then call Richard, or better yet, call Robert Mitchell directly. I guarantee he'll be very interested to hear how you're treating his wife." An elegant woman in designer clothes, who had been quietly watching the exchange, stepped forward. "Bradley, perhaps you should check again. This seems like a misunderstanding that could escalate in a very awkward way." Bradley straightened his tie, his expression hardening. "Mrs. Pembroke, I assure you we know the Mitchell family well. This woman is not Beth Mitchell." Mrs. Pembroke looked at Beth with a mixture of pity and embarrassment. "Of course, I just thought—" "It's fine," Beth interrupted, her voice steady. "I appreciate your concern." She turned back to Bradley. "I'm going to sit in the lobby and wait for my husband. He'll be here soon." "I've been more than patient," Bradley snapped, his voice taking on an edge. "Frank, please escort this person out now." The security guard stepped forward reluctantly, his expression unreadable. "Ma'am, please don't make me remove you physically." Beth felt the weight of everyone's gaze. Wealthy guests, the staff, anyone who had stopped to watch. For a moment, she thought of leaving, slipping out quietly and avoiding the unfolding spectacle. But then something inside her stirred, a resolve she couldn't ignore. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly, her voice firm. "The only mistake," Emma interjected, her voice dripping with venom, "was letting you through the door. We don't serve your kind here." A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. Beth's cheeks flushed with a mix of anger and humiliation. "My kind?" she repeated, the words sharp and disbelieving. "People looking for handouts," Bradley clarified loudly, his voice ringing out through the room. "People pretending to be something they're not." "Frank," the security guard, placed a hand on Beth's arm. "Ma'am, please." Beth yanked her arm away, her voice now icy. "Don't touch me." The tension in the lobby was palpable. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, others watched with curiosity, and a few even seemed entertained by the scene. Beth stood there, isolated, surrounded by wealth, yet made to feel utterly worthless because of her appearance. "We don't serve the poor," Emma spat, her professional mask slipping entirely. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp, a cruel accusation that shocked everyone within earshot. Even Bradley looked stunned by the outburst. For Beth, time seemed to slow. In that moment, she wasn't just Beth Mitchell, the wife of a billionaire, denied entry to his hotel. She was every person who had ever been judged for their appearance, their clothes, their accent. Every child in her art program who had been told they didn't belong. Every dreamer dismissed before they had the chance to prove their worth. Frank's grip on her arm tightened, his hand heavy with force. "Ma'am, I need you to leave now." As he began to usher her toward the exit, the revolving doors spun open, and a tall figure in an impeccably tailored suit strode into the lobby. Beth looked up, her heart catching in her chest as Robert Mitchell, her husband, stepped into the room. His presence seemed to fill the space, and the luxury of the hotel suddenly felt like a distant memory. "Today, while dressed just as she is now, my wife helped a boy who hasn't spoken in months express himself through painting," Robert said, his voice clear, resonating in the hushed room. "That's her standard. What's yours?" Bradley looked down at his polished shoes, his face reddening. "Judging people by their clothes, Frank," Robert continued, his gaze narrowing at the security guard. "Is this really how you see the world? Is this what you've been taught to value?" Frank, now clearly uncomfortable, spoke first, his voice strained. "Mr. Mitchell, I was just following protocol," he stammered. "Protocol to physically remove someone who wasn't causing a disturbance?" Robert's eyes were cold, his words deliberate. "Someone who simply didn't fit your image of what a guest should look like?" Beth spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "Robert, they were doing their jobs as they understood them. That's the real issue here." Robert turned to her, his expression softening. He then addressed the 3 staff members, his voice calm but unwavering. "I'm not angry at any of you personally. What troubles me is the system that taught you that worth is determined by appearance. That some people deserve dignity and others don't, simply because of how they look or how much money they seem to have." Bradley's professional veneer cracked, and for the first time, genuine shame flashed across his face. "Mrs. Mitchell, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Beth replied, her voice steady. "Just listen." Robert moved to stand behind his desk, his posture commanding, every inch the CEO. "Now, here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'm calling an emergency meeting with all hotel managers across the Mitchell Group. We're implementing a complete overhaul of our training program, with a specific focus on eliminating bias and prejudice in customer service." He turned to Emma. "The phrase, 'We don't serve your kind here,' will never be uttered in any of my hotels again. Am I clear?" Emma nodded, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Frank," Robert continued, his voice unwavering, "your job is to protect guests, not intimidate them. We'll be developing new security protocols immediately to ensure that our policies are both effective and respectful." Frank stood straighter, his voice firm. "Yes, sir." "And Bradley," Robert said, his gaze turning to the duty manager. "As the duty manager, the tone you set here influences everyone. Your actions today reflect a culture that I never wanted to create in my hotels." Bradley's face turned pale, his hands trembling slightly. "Will we be terminated, sir?" The question hung in the air, thick with tension. The 3 staff members stood frozen, awaiting their fate. Beth stood beside her husband, exchanging a silent glance, a shared understanding in their eyes. Robert's voice was firm. "No, you won't be terminated." Their collective breath seemed to release in a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. Instead, Robert continued, his eyes hardening. "You'll be the first to undergo the new training program, and after that, you'll help implement it across all our properties." Bradley blinked, clearly surprised. "Sir, firing you would be easy," Robert explained. "Having you help transform our culture, that's far more valuable. You'll experience firsthand how bias leads to misjudgments, and that makes you the perfect ambassadors for change." Beth smiled, her expression warm with approval. "Sometimes our worst mistakes can lead to our greatest contributions, if we're willing to learn from them." Emma, who had remained silent up until now, finally spoke. "Why would you give us that chance after what we did?" Beth answered before Robert could. "Because every person deserves the opportunity to grow and change, including you." Robert nodded, his voice calm and resolute. "Starting tomorrow, Bradley, you'll work with our HR team to develop comprehensive anti-bias training. Emma, you'll be temporarily reassigned to our community outreach program." He turned to Frank. "And Frank, you'll help review and revise all security protocols to make sure they're both effective and respectful." The three staff members stood a little taller now, the weight of their earlier shame replaced with the possibility of redemption. "One more thing," Robert added, his tone softening. "You're each going to spend one day volunteering at my wife's art program. I want you to see firsthand the incredible things that happen when people are valued for who they are, not what they wear or how much money they have." Beth's eyes sparkled with emotion, the weight of the moment not lost on her. This wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about transformation. "That will be all for now," Robert concluded, his voice clear. "You can return to your duties. We'll meet again tomorrow morning." As the staff filed out, they murmured apologies to Beth, which she acknowledged with a simple nod. Her expression was neither vindictive nor particularly forgiving. It was simply human. When the door closed behind them, Robert's formal demeanor melted away, and he crossed to Beth, taking her hands in his. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," he said quietly. Beth squeezed his hands gently. "I'm not." Robert looked surprised. "You're not?" "No," she replied, shaking her head. "What happened today was awful, but it happens every day to people who don't have a billionaire husband to set things right. At least this way, something good might come from it." Robert smiled, the private smile reserved only for her. "That's why I married you. Your ability to find purpose, even in painful moments." Beth grabbed her trucker cap and backpack. "So, about that room service and hot bath you promised me?" 3 months later, Beth stood in the Mitchell Grand lobby, watching Bradley warmly greet an elderly woman dressed in a simple house dress and worn sweater. The change in his demeanor was more than just professional, it was sincere. He escorted her to the elevator with the same respect he would have shown a visiting dignitary. "Quite a transformation," Robert remarked, appearing beside Beth. Beth nodded, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. The numbers reflect it, too. Guest satisfaction is up 23% across all properties. What started as a response to one incident has now sparked a company-wide revolution. The Dignity for All initiative has been rolled out at every Mitchell hotel, Robert continued, and Bradley, surprisingly, has become its most passionate advocate. He's leading another training session today, and he's even requested to take the program to our international properties next month. Beth smiled warmly. Sometimes people just need the chance to be better than they are. Across the lobby, Emma emerged from the back office, accompanying a young man in a wheelchair. The change in her was perhaps the most striking. After her time at Beth's art program, Emma had requested a permanent reassignment to community relations, where she now ran a program offering hotel internships to disadvantaged youth. "Mrs. Mitchell," Emma waved, guiding the young man toward them. "This is Marcus. He's starting in the culinary program today." Beth greeted the nervous-looking teenager with a warm smile. "Marcus was one of my art students last year," she explained to Robert. "He has an incredible eye for detail. The executive chef is excited to have you," Robert told the young man, shaking his hand with a friendly smile. As Emma led Marcus toward the kitchen, Beth's gaze shifted to Frank, who was stationed at his security post. The security protocols had undergone a complete overhaul, focusing on creating a welcoming environment while maintaining safety. Frank now trained all security staff personally, using his own experiences as a teaching tool. "Your mistake has turned into something pretty remarkable," Beth observed, linking her arm with Robert's as they walked through the lobby together. Robert chuckled. "My mistake? Marrying an art teacher who wears trucker caps to five-star hotels." He pulled her closer. "Best mistake I ever made." They paused at the entrance, where a new plaque had been installed. It read, "At Mitchell Luxury Properties, we believe true luxury is treating every person with dignity and respect. We judge not by appearance, but by recognizing the inherent worth in each individual." Below that was a quote from one of Beth's favorite poets. "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." As they stood admiring the plaque, Mrs. Pembroke, the woman who had tried to intervene during Beth's earlier humiliation, approached them. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've been meaning to thank you," she said with a warm smile. Beth looked surprised. "Thank me for what?" "For changing this place," Mrs. Pembroke said. "I've stayed in luxury hotels all my life, but this is the first one I've seen with a soul." She glanced around the lobby. "My granddaughter now volunteers at your art program. She says it's changed her life." After Mrs. Pembroke moved on, Beth and Robert continued toward the exit. Outside, the afternoon sun bathed the city streets in golden light, as people from all walks of life moved about, each with their own story, their own dignity. "You know what the best part is?" Beth mused. "What's that?" Robert asked, glancing at her. "This isn't just about one hotel or one incident anymore," she said thoughtfully. "Every person who experiences this change carries it with them. Bradley, Emma, and Frank will never see people the same way again, and neither will the guests who witness the difference." Robert nodded slowly, one small ripple becoming a wave. As they walked away from the hotel, Beth, still in her casual clothes and trusty trucker cap, passed a street artist painting portraits on the sidewalk. She paused to admire his work and engage him in a conversation about technique and inspiration. The artist, initially surprised by her knowledge, soon relaxed and animatedly discussed his process. Robert watched her with quiet pride. This was the woman he had fallen in love with, someone who could move effortlessly between worlds because she saw the humanity in everyone. Later that evening, as they drove back to their countryside home, Beth gazed out the window at the passing city lights. "Something on your mind?" Robert asked gently. "I was just thinking about what happened 3 months ago," she replied. "How something painful turned into something beautiful." "That's your gift," Robert said simply. "Finding beauty where others see only problems." Beth turned to him with a smile. "No, that's our gift now. And think of all the people who will never know they were judged by their appearance because of what we've started." As they passed the city limits, heading toward the peace of their home, both knew that true change wasn't measured by corporate policies or training programs, though those were important. True change was measured in moments of human connection, dignity recognized, and respect freely given. And sometimes those moments begin with something as simple as a woman in a trucker cap walking into a luxury hotel, refusing to be defined by appearances alone. Stories like Beth's remind us that real change often begins with a single moment of standing up for dignity and respect. Has something similar ever happened to you? Have you ever been judged by your appearance rather than your character? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might inspire others who are facing similar challenges. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss an inspiring story. We share new videos every week that will touch your heart and perhaps change your perspective. From everyone here at our channel, remember, true worth isn't determined by how you look, but by how you treat others. See you in our next video.